Hello, this is Father David, starting with chapter 22 in the Lenten spring. Not to be served, but to serve. So we continue to go through the prayer of St. Ephrem, and this one is the part about lust of power. And Father Tom mentions in the chapter that we usually associate this with, people that are obviously in positions of influence, lawmakers, the rich and the influential, type of thing. And, how is it that we kind of on average would say that how can we have lust of power? I work a day-to-day job and just try to pay my bills, and I'm nobody of influence. Nobody cares what I think. And, what do you mean lust of power? Well, Father Tom emphasizes here, basically it's just the sense of wanting to have our way. We desire to enforce our will and to get our way in almost everything we do, to impose our ideas, to do what we want, to enact our own programs, to manipulate others and to have them in our control. How that happens is different for every person, and the motivation for doing that is different for every person. Some people try to do that because they hate feeling like other people are controlling them. Other people are, motivated to do that because, they're afraid that they're going to not get to experience something that they really want to and be denied that. Other people want to do that because they want to look important, right? And they want to be seen as the cleverest person in the room. And so, there's different reasons for doing it, and there's different manifestations of it, but we all do it. The parent that's, wanting to control the kids because, they're either desperate that they don't want them to turn out wrong, whatever that, whatever they're fearing that's going to look like, or, whether it's the kids wanting to manipulate the parents, it's a different dynamic depending on what's going on. But of course, Father Tom contrasts this with the example of Christ. And that example of Christ is that there's a sense where here is the creator of the universe, the one through whom all things were made, becoming, while still remaining the uncreated God, sharing in and becoming a human being, with a created nature, right? And so he comes and he shares in that humanity. And what does he do? He isn't the triumphant earthly king coming in, victoriously on a mighty steed, astride a mighty steed. He is, the image of humility coming in sideways, which is a position of submission, of servanthood, on a donkey's colt. He sits down for the Last Supper with his disciples, and he washes their feet. He strips down, puts a towel around them like a slave, and he washes their dirty, grimy feet with the dust from walking down those roads from town to town. They were awful, more than likely, out in the heat of the day and dirty and dusty, and he washes them. Not just a little perfunctory ritualistic thing, but he takes a basin of water and does it. And he says, this is what you have to do. You have to serve. And these were his teachings. Whoever would be the greatest in God's kingdom, James and John and their meddling mama, wanted to have them be the greatest among the disciples when he comes in his kingdom. And he says, if you want to be great, you have to be the servant of all. This, of course, in this chapter shouldn't be surprising for anybody who knows me. I'm a Broadway fan. And Father Tom mentions the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar. I have to admit, it made me belly laugh when he said, in the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar, there is at least one good scene. freely admit it is not my favorite musical, and it has some serious issues when it comes to the actual scriptural account. It departs in rather serious ways from the scriptural testimony. So, beware of that. But he says the people are screaming at Jesus to show his power and authority in signs and wonders and miracles for their benefit. Jesus cuts them off, and in a soft and gentle voice declares, "Neither you, Simon, nor the 50,000, nor the Romans, nor the Jews, nor Judas, nor the 12, nor the priests, nor the scribes, nor doomed Jerusalem itself understand what power is, understand what glory is, understand at all, understand at all." And then Father Tom asks, do we yet understand? Do we understand anything at all? Do we see and want to see that power and glory are to obey God and to seek his will in order to do it? Do we see and believe that power is fulfilled in meekness and authority in service? Do we comprehend and accept the fact that the author of life himself, Jesus, the Son of God, being made like us, his brethren in every respect, being tempted as we are tempted, in order to be with us in our temptation, was himself made perfect as a man through what he suffered for our sake? And then he says, see Hebrews 2, chapter 2, verses 10 through 18. That he was made perfect through his sufferings. And so, this is the paradox of Christian life, that it's so easy to pay lip service to, kind of like, despondency in the last video, or despair. To say, yes, it's always good to be humble, to serve, to help, to, not think of yourself, to think of others. It doesn't cost anything to be kind. These are all the cliches that we say. But at the same time, it's difficult. We have to admit our own inclination is to have our own way, And it's difficult because sometimes we have the sense that, what we want, the idea we want to push through, it is the most efficient way. It is the most direct way. It does accomplish the objectives in the most complete and, thoroughly thought through way. It's another reason we lust for power. And it's true that, lest we think of this as just being sort of a board meeting sense. This is in all of our human interactions. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't ever work towards the best way forward. But it does mean that we cannot be blind to the motivations and the needs of other people. Mindful, of course, that no one is going to please everybody. If you try to please everybody, you please nobody. But there is a sense in which when we have this desire to seek our own way, to ask ourselves, how can I put that to the side and not have it be the only thing on the table? How can I seek to do this to serve everybody that's at the table? Is there a way forward that addresses both my concerns and the concerns of other people? And for that, we really have to ask for and be ready to listen to, in their own words, the concerns and the worries and the frustrations of other people. And to really work towards taking away the blindness that so often we have to the experiences, the trauma, the suffering of other people. Because that is truly what, especially in our current lack of dialogue, is going on. We have factions of American society, definitely, that are only listening for whatever it is, on whatever part of the spectrum you happen to sit politically. It really seems that we are intent on lust of power and saying, my experiences, my prerogatives, my priorities are the only thing that I'm really going to be paying attention to. Because if I don't get that pushed through, then all is lost, and we look at it as a zero-sum game. If they get their agenda pushed through, then I inevitably will lose ground with my agenda. And we really forget the spirit that, we have to acknowledge each other at the table. And we have to let each other in. And trust. This requires trust. Ultimately, for the Christian, to take it away from the purely political, it really requires that God is enough. That if I do not exert the control that I want, that it will be taken care of, that God is still sovereign. To use the cliche, God is in control, although that gets misused all the time. But to truly say that I am not only safe as a servant, but that this is where I'm truly meant to be. To work, and for so many people it's harder than other people, that I'm working against manipulating them to get what I want. I'm working against always pushing to get my fantastic and wonderful ideas pushed through. But that I would learn to be a servant and to use perhaps your abilities of persuasion and, efficient workmanship to incorporate as many concerns and ideas as possible. So this is, perhaps in our modern time, what it means to be a servant. So, or a servant leader, especially. But may God bless you, and Lord willing, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.